speech faced by India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in London. This as he was departing Chatham House in St. James Square in London. The minister had just engaged in an hour-long discussion that focused on India and the changing world order. In fact, those are visuals that we can show to you. As you can see, a man rushed towards Dr. Jaishankar's convoy. Not just that, he goes on to desecrate the Indian flag. Shockingly, the Metropolitan Police seem unresponsive to this act of destroying the Indian flag. No guess is needed that this man is a pro-Khalistani protester. Remember, Dr. Jaishankar is on a visit to the UK to strengthen the India-UK bilateral relationship. While international law protects free speech, there are instances where speech can legitimately it can also be restricted under the same law, such as when it violates the rights of others or even advocates hatred and incites discrimination or even violence, such as in this instance. Also, has this incident not arrived as a reminder of the necessity for heightened security measures and vigilance during diplomatic engagements? That's the question we'll be posing to our guests. But New Delhi, remember, has been quick to condemn this incident and even register their protest over the entire matter. India, in fact, has released a statement, and this is what India's External Affairs Ministry says, that we condemn the provocative activities and we deplore the misuse of democratic freedom. We expect the host government to take action. The Ministry of External Affairs further asked the Keir Starmer government to live up to its diplomatic obligations. But viewers, this is not the first time that India has fallen prey to Khalistani radicals in the UK. And this will not be the first instance of such a lackadaisical attitude of the enforcement authorities either. Let's jog our memories back to 2019. The ex-police officer Harry Miller was investigated over transphobic social media posts. But the same zeal for law and order is not visible when masked Khalistani extremists stormed a cinema hall in London, shouting anti-India slogans, leaving members of the Indian diaspora watching Kangana Ranaut's Tara Emergency petrified and causing the cinema to halt the screening of this movie. At the same time, in September of 2022, following Queen Elizabeth II's death, several anti-monarchy protesters were arrested during King Charles III's accession event. But when a year later, Khalistan supporters gathered outside the Indian High Commission in London, claiming that they were protesting against Nijjar's killing, no action was initiated. It was only last year when two pro-Israel protesters were arrested for carrying a Hamas terrorist sign during a march in London on suspicion of breach of peace. But a year earlier in 2023, when a group of unidentified assailants blocked the Indian High Commissioner to the UK, Vikram Doraiswamy, from entering a Gurudwara in Scotland, where no arrests were even made whatsoever. In 2024, just last year, an army veteran was criminally charged for praying silently near an abortion facility in Bournemouth. Local authorities alleged that the silent prayer violated the so-called buffer zone, a designated area where individuals are allowed to express approval or disapproval of abortion. But why was action not initiated against Khalistani extremists who took down the tricolour, attempted to storm the High Commission in London? These questions remain unanswered. The back-to-back attacks clearly hint at a larger conspiracy against India. And the National Investigation Agency, or the NIA, has hinted at the same time that when investigating the attack on the Indian High Commission in London by a group of separatists, the NIA called it an attempt to promote the Khalistani cause and advocate of secession of Punjab from India. The NIA has also noted that the attacks are a retaliatory move to action against Amritpal Singh and a bid to influence the crackdown on Waris Punjabda and its leader Amritpal Singh. And so, when it comes to Jaishankar's visit and his convoy being attacked, now is UK giving the Khalistan threat a pass? Is this UK's free speech definition being what? That's a question we'll be posing to our guests in just a bit.
India is occupying Kashmir illegally.
भारत को खंडित करने की मानसिकता से लगा हुआ है, उसमें खालिस्तानी फोर्स भी है। आप यकीन माने जिस स्पीड से भारत समावेशी एक जिसे कहेंगे हम ग्राउथ की तरफ जा रहा है, ऐसी ताकतें खुद ब खुद डिफीट हों।
कुल मिलाकर 100-150 लोग हैं पूरे लंदन में जो इस प्रकार की हरकत करते हैं और सिर्फ लोगों का ध्यान अपनी ओर आकर्षित करने के लिए करते हैं।
Right, introducing my guests today, I am in fact joined in by Mr. Yashvardhan Kumar Sinha, who is a former Indian High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. Also joined in by Tara Kartha, who is a former director at NSCS. Many thanks to you both for joining in. Mr. Sinha, if I may begin by asking you, would you call this just a security breach, or as many here in India feel that this is also an attack on Indian dignity, that too on the international stage?
I think I get a feeling of deja vu because this is a replay of incidents that have taken place in the past. When I was there I remember when the Honorable Prime Minister had come in April 2018 to attend Chogam. While he was addressing the Indian community at the Methodist Hall in Westminster, at the adjoining Parliament Square, I recall the Indian tricolour was brought down and desecrated. There were flags of other Commonwealth countries flying. And when I think the position taken then, freedom of expression, I challenged that, saying that those flags were put up by the government of the UK, not by the Indian High Commission or the Indian government. So it was public property. So if public property is desecrated, that cannot be construed as freedom of expression. And I remember that they did apologize for that incident. But this is slightly different. However, they're all part of a piece where extremist elements are given the freedom to protest, which is fine as long as you protest peacefully and within the bounds of decency and law and order. But when you try and harm visiting dignitaries or try and attack the diplomatic mission of a country, then that becomes a very serious issue. And I recall it was 2019, I had already left by then, but the Indian High Commission was attacked in London during Independence Day.
Yes.
And a window, if I recall correctly, was broken. So I think these are incidents, these have been happening. It's not that it suddenly happened. And I'm sure the police there are aware of elements who indulge in this sort of activity, and they should be firmly curbed. I don't think you can hide under the guise of freedom of expression or freedom of speech and then do nothing about incidents like this, because this only encourages violent elements to take law into their own hands.
I can see Ramneek Singh Maan, who's an activist, has also joined in. Welcome, Ramneek. But Tara, I want to bring you in. I think Mr. Sinha has made a very valid pertinent point. What is freedom of speech and expression? Even international law says that if it violates the rights of others and if it instigates discrimination and extremism, then it certainly doesn't amount to freedom of speech or expression. And what is it that we have viewed today? Would you still call this as freedom of speech and expression?
Good point, Akanksha, but I would actually totally back Ambassador Sinha on something very simple. There is another protocol to how you treat diplomatic staff and political persons. That protocol was violated. It's as simple as that. What if this man had been carrying something, a Molotov cocktail? Forget guns and bombs and things. Molotov cocktail is something any of these people can make at home. What if he had thrown that? So it is clearly a failure of the British police in terms of how they managed it. Separately, I would say there was I think a report on the efficiency of the British police which completely said that these people are not up to standards. Of course, it's a different issue that the UK did that study, which is a good thing. But this is not acceptable. Consider this. Compare this to what they did with the pro-Palestinian protests. They cracked down on them. So why isn't it that they don't crack down on Khalistani groups? So it's not that they can't. So clearly they can when they want to. In this instance, they didn't. They've never done it. as you so very well brought out in your show.
And those are the instances that I will take to further this discussion, Ramneek. There's a statement which has already come in from the UK government, and I couldn't help but frown upon one line that caught my attention. The Metropolitan Police acted swiftly to address the situation, and we remain fully committed to ensuring the security of our diplomatic visitors in line with our international obligations. That's certainly a retort coming to the reminder that's gone from India's External Affairs Ministry.
Oh, no. See, first things first, Akanksha, good evening to the fellow panelists. Now, let's be very clear. The job of the police is to preempt and not to act and take actions later. They knew that, this has been happening for a while, and last year alone, you would remember that there was an attack on the High Commission where they wanted to try and bring the Indian flag down.
Yes.
And here, yesterday also, they were holding a tricolor and they were desecrating the flag of this country. So, well, Taraji very correctly said, what if he was carrying a Molotov cocktail? Well, it would have been on fire and it would have been visible in the night. But what if he was carrying acid? Or he was carrying some kind of a poison? Or any other substance which could have harmed our dignitary? So the thing is, let's try and bring a situation, Akanksha. The situation that, they are trying to ask for a Khalistani state out of India, not from Pakistan, is evident enough that it's a political movement which is being promoted by the enemies of India. But also, if we were to, see, since diplomacy is based on reciprocity,
Yes.
if we were to encourage Irish and Scottish and other descendant groups from Britain, how would the Britain or the British staff here feel? This has been happening for far too long, and the British police, they need to now understand, their polity now needs to understand that they cannot any longer support them. I am quote unquote saying support is because the Khalistani elements are getting their support from the deep state and the agencies of these 5 countries, and it is a known thing. I don't know if, these gentlemen here, and Taraji, I met her a few days back in Delhi.
The gentleman is Ambassador Sinha.
Haji, sir, I'm not sure if people know or not, but in the community, in the Sikh community, we're very clear that the Canadian establishment, the CSIS, the UK establishment, the CIA, they're all supporting them. They're all agents of these countries.
That's why.
Let me put it one step forward. These are British citizens, these are British terrorists trying to attack an Indian politician, our external affairs minister. So they need to rein in their terrorists on their territory, because law and order, Akanksha, is a state subject. This is
And
for
that's
them.
exactly
And
the
if they
point that I
can't-
want to take.
and if
I
they
want to
can't
take
do-
that point. Yes, I want to
If they
take that
can't-
point
if they
forward
can't
with
provide
Ambassador
security,
Sinha.
Akanksha, if they can't provide security, Akanksha, we will get our security detail. We'll get our CISF. We will get our police. We'll get our people, NSG, to protect our dignitaries.
Ambassador Sinha, I want to bring you in on that point, because remember, this incident particularly has happened just perhaps within a span of hours after the External Affairs Minister had that very significant meeting with the Home Secretary of UK, Yvette Cooper. And he did take up the issue of extremism over there, as he did in his previous meeting with the then Home Secretary and Foreign Minister over there in the United Kingdom as well. That happened last year, I believe. But you see, this incident has happened at a very critical juncture.
Yes, I think I don't want to comment on what Mr. Mann had said about the deep state, etc., but it's quite clear that irrespective of which party is in power in the UK, we have had such incidents. And not just in the UK, but the other countries, Canada, the US even, Australia, etc.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go into that larger picture about the deep
No, but
state
I'm
being
sure you
involved.
would want
But
to highlight the failure of the state to address this Khalistan menace, whether it was the
that is
previous
what-
Rishi Sunak government or the current Keir Starmer government.
Let's not name names. I think it happened even before Mr. Sunak.
True.
But what I was trying to say was that the responsibility is with the local security organizations. And if they plead freedom of expression and freedom of speech, then I'm afraid that doesn't wash anymore. Not with the government of India and not with the Indian public, because it has happened far too often. I mean, they have been allowed to demonstrate, which is fair enough. You're allowed to demonstrate in any democratic country, but it has to be peaceful. I mean, I'm surely they realize that it can get out of hand, and they should have taken adequate security measures. So I certainly feel it's a lapse as far as the security is concerned. But unfortunately, it's been happening far too often for us to accept that it was just merely a breach of security.
Absolutely. And Tara, I want to ask you, is this not also going to be an onus on the states? Because, and where are we missing out? Because the previous Rishi Sunak government had come up with a task force. I'm learning that there were 5,000 accounts of Khalistan extremists, particularly, which were under the scanner. What happened to that task force, A? What did the task force manage so far? These are questions that remain unanswered, and the Indian government perhaps need to follow up and raise these questions to the current government as well.
No, Akansha, that's a very good question. And the thing is, see, we, having said all this, we have a fairly good relationship with the UK in terms of how we share threat analysis, right? It's pretty okay. And we've had we had an arrest last year of one of the guys who attacked the High Commission. He was arrested in Delhi. This was after we had talks with the Home Secretary. All that takes place. But I would, okay, I'll give you an instance. Right now, I believe, I just saw this, that the UK has sent out advisories to various universities not to support any of these Gaza protesters, right? They've said, take action quietly. This is all done very quietly. Now, if my point is this, if you can do all this for the Gaza thing, but for decades you've done nothing about Khalistan, then what Mr. Mann says, that there is somewhere there is support for these guys, makes sense. And in 23, if you remember, it was across. Suddenly this thing erupted. I'm not saying it was UK was involved, no. I'm just saying it did erupt. Australia, in the UK, this whole Amritpal Singh, that whole adventure, it was across Europe and Australia and New Zealand. So there is something going on here. And I think you're right. We need to get together with the UK, because the UK has now designated Khalistanis as a threat to the UK itself.
No, but interestingly, this is the first time that in a UK review report, even Hindu nationalism has found space right next to Khalistan extremism. So you're looking at a government which can also be very tricky. Forgive me for highlighting that, but this is the first time that's found space in a UK Home Review report. Ramneek, I want to bring you in on that very point, that you're looking at a government which is cracking down on illegal immigrants. In fact, till February this year, they have highlighted a record crackdown on illegal immigrants, and that's understandable. But the question again comes to, what is the government doing about extremist activities such as this?
Nothing. The UK government, you ask, nothing. They're doing nothing about it. As a matter of fact, their MPs are complicit.
On that note, I want to take, I'm also trying to join the dots, which is why I want to ask you the point that Tara is making, that, our intel sharing capabilities are great. And if there is cooperation when it comes to strategic cooperation, is it enough?
No, it's not enough. Of course, it's not enough. But again, the problem is that our government is also not following up that harshly or that, swiftly with the British, government. And the kind of response you are getting from the British or from the Canadians is very, very lukewarm. Well, a crackdown on illegals is laughable, especially in places like Europe and UK. I mean, what are you even talking about? You've opened your floodgates. You've opened your borders for immigrants to come into your country. And now you're talking about crackdown. See, US crackdown seems to be something which is, they're following or pursuing seriously. But then here, they have a constituency. Can you imagine the British discussing in their parliament to give a lesser punishment for the similar crime for people of certain religion, for people who are from a minority community? Can you imagine that sort of discussions happening in UK's parliament? And then, take two, you discuss here that, the UK government is serious about tackling with Khalistan. It is their project, Akanksha. Khalistan project is their project where, they are denying India its rightful position by disturbing its internal security matters sitting in their own country. Tell me one country outside of the Five Eyes countries where Khalistanis are active. Tell me one country. Are they active in Singapore? Do Sikhs not live in Singapore? Are they active in Thailand? Do Sikhs not live in Thailand? Are they active in Africa? Do Sikhs not live in Africa? Are they active in Russia? Do Sikhs not live in Russia? Are they not active in Hong Kong? There are a lot of Sikhs.
Taken.
Just
Very,
the
very
Five
fair,
Eyes
valid
countries.
point. Ambassador Sinha, would you like to add to that? Because I also want to ask you, because most of the activities, as many Khalistanis themselves have gone on record to say, are retaliatory moves. As I highlighted, one of them was against the crackdown on Amritpal Singh. So if you are looking at such activities as retaliatory moves, this is bound to be a security threat for our nation. Why shouldn't it be taken up at the highest levels?
I think Mr. Maan certainly has a point, but I think these people are a small minority that indulge in this sort of violence, and with or without the connivance of whoever. But the point is that a large number of Sikhs, when I was there, I interacted, we celebrated Guru Gobind Singh Ji's 350th birth anniversary with great gusto all over the UK, and I was welcomed at various gurdwaras at Gravesend and in Birmingham and various other places. So the Sikh community is, as a whole, and are very, very supportive of better India-UK relations. And they support the efforts of both the governments to forge deeper ties. But there are a small minority of these extremists who try and vitiate the relationship and try and put up impediments. So I think it is certainly the job of the UK government to curb such activities, because then they have an impact on bilateral relations. And then naturally so, when your High Commission is attacked or when your minister is threatened, obviously it will have an impact on bilateral relations. And I'm sure the government of the UK realizes that, and I do hope that they will take this up seriously and ensure that such incidents are not repeated in future.
Tara, the timing of such an episode, at a time when India is pressing very hard, so is the United Kingdom to, go ahead with the much awaited FTA. The fact of the matter is that the Starmer government is also, being called out for its connections with, say, groups like APPG, which we all know are associated with the International Sikh Youth Federation, which was earlier a proscribed organization. Where does this leave our focus on strengthening the bilateral relationship? Can we look at strengthening the bilateral relationship with, or in fact look at these activities in isolation and continue to focus on the bilateral relationship, even including trade and investment, even people-to-people ties?
No, I think the FTA is a different ball game altogether. I mean, that's like, I think Ambassador correctly said, this is a very small minority of Sikhs. Nonetheless, that doesn't mean you ignore it. It is a small minority, but keeping that aside for the moment, your FTA is in a different league, especially now, right? With all the tariffs coming, these things matter to us.
Okay.
But the thing is, see, like Avtar Singh Khanda, who died in hospital, right? That whole lot is being allowed to let's face it, I mean, whether they are state or not, the state has taken no action at all to get these people under some control. That is number one. Number two is the fact that all of these, the International Sikh Youth Federation, they're all linked back to Pakistan. Okay, now I'm sorry to bring Pakistan again into this, because one sort of doesn't even want to talk about Pakistan. But this is where the intel backup comes up, right? There is a bunch of stuff going on there. They're in Lahore. There is very, very clear ISI, this thing. Now, Pakistan is very adept at using these little, that's all they have, right? They're doing it in Bangladesh.
Okay.
So that kind of thing, I think the UK can crack down on that, because it's a threat to itself. You've got this bunch of people going up and down between Pakistan and the UK. It's a yearly, hundreds of them travel back and forth. How do you know which ones of them are not a threat to you?
All right. Ramneek, I want to bring you in on that point of the crackdown. You know, many are saying that if US can crack down on fentanyl smuggling, many of which we know is coming from across the borders in Canada, which also involves these Khalistani activists. How do you respond to perhaps a similar kind of crackdown which US is carrying on right now?
So, Akanksha, see, I'll tell you how it is. Well, it's going to be opening another Pandora's box or another can of worms, whichever way you want to use it. But the fact of the matter is a lot of global intel operations run on drug money. Whether it's the CIA, it's the MI6, or it's the ISI, any country you pick up, any intel operation you pick up will always have a drug money angle to it. You follow the money trail and you will know what I'm saying. So that is that. When you say they are cracking down, well, it's a part of the establishment. You know, that's where they make their money from. So I would take that with a pinch. I'll take that with a bucket of salt, the crackdown that
I want to quickly take closing thoughts from Ambassador Sinha. Ambassador Sinha, you know, why I raised the issue of the FTA, because ministers who are negotiating the FTA, we are also learning some of them have links with, say, the APPG, which is a pro-Khalistani body as well.
I just wanted to clarify, the APPG, if you're referring to the all-parliamentary the group, then there are APPGs on various issues, including JNK and
one of them
extremism on Israel, on India. So they're basically, these groups are basically, I mean, they hold meetings in the premises of Westminster Parliament, etc. However, coming back to the FTA, your question, I agree with
and that
Dr.
houses,
Karta.
the Federation houses, you know, even an office which was for the International CQ
That's correct,
Federation.
because the members of Parliament are members of that various group.
So the links are established.
Yeah, but what we should keep in mind is that the FTA, whatever FTA is negotiated and concluded, will be in mutual interest. And the current environment internationally is such that we really need to look at how we can facilitate trade rather than block trade. So I tend to agree with Dr. Karta that while, of course, there would be some impact on bilateral relations per se, we shouldn't mix the two unless it's really required. And I don't think at this stage we should be even looking at that.
Okay.
However, one last point, if I may, the link between the ISI and the Khalistani extremists. In the Midlands and north of the Midlands up to Manchester, if you see the members of Parliament that represent constituencies, you will find a large number of them are of Mirpuri or Pakistani origin. And they obviously work as a group. They represent, I mean, most of them are from one particular party. And they contribute towards linking up with the Khalistanis and creating problems for us. We must be wary of that.
And not just us, perhaps even London. I'm sure you'll agree. And let's also focus on the silver linings. And I'm glad that the silver linings have been highlighted by you and Tara both. Thank you so much for joining in on Plain Speak. And with that, it's time to slip into a quick break. And back home, the language war is raging on. The allies have, of course, picked up sides and the battle lines have been drawn. But who's winning this narrative war? We'll be deep diving in just a bit. Stay tuned. Now, as India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar participated in a discussion held by Chatham House in London, Khalistani protesters have staged protests outside the venue. The protesters had gathered outside the building holding flags and speakers as they sloganeered. Dr. Jaishankar was leaving the Chatham House venue after a discussion, remember, as the man ran towards his car and even attempted to heckle Dr. S. Jaishankar. A video of this entire incident now circulating online shows the man aggressively rushing towards the External Affairs Minister's convoy, while officers initially appeared hesitant to act. However, moments later, the police moved in and took him and other extremists away. Meanwhile, Dr. Jaishankar has confirmed to raising this issue of extremism and trafficking in meeting with UK's Secretary of State for Home Affairs, Yvette Cooper. Now, MEA sources are telling CNN News 18, in fact, they have confirmed that MEA has also condemned this breach of security during External Affairs Minister's visit to the United Kingdom.
देखिए, बहुत सारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं अभी जिनमें अभी इस प्रकार का एक तत्व शामिल है जो भारत को खंडित करने की मानसिकता से लगा हुआ है। उसमें खालिस्तानी फोर्स भी है, वो जगह जगह पे अपनी कोशिश कर रहे हैं, लेकिन आप यकीन माने जिस स्पीड से भारत समावेशी एक जिसे कहेंगे हम ग्राउथ की तरफ जा रहा है, ऐसी ताकतें खुद ब खुद डिफीट होंगी।
एक कुल मिलाकर 100-150 लोग हैं पूरे लंदन में जो इस प्रकार की हरकत करते हैं और सिर्फ लोगों का ध्यान अपनी ओर आकर्षित करने के लिए करते हैं। ना जमीन वहां पर उनके पास है, ना यहाँ पर भारत में कोई उनका कोई समर्थक है।
All right, joining me right now on this news story is Siddhant Mishra from the newsroom, Sanjay Suri joining me from London. In fact, many thanks to you both for joining in. Siddhant, first of all, take us through the MEA statement, which has, of course, very much deplored this misuse of democratic freedom.
Well, that's right, Akanksha. And in fact, this is not happening for the first time. If you remember, in 2023, when Indian High Commission was attacked by Khalistani goons, at that point in time also, India did take up that issue very, very seriously with the government of UK. And in fact, a British envoy was also summoned by Ministry of External Affairs, after which, if you remember, there was a strong statement which came from the government of UK, perhaps assuring full security to Indian diplomats and diplomatic buildings in the United Kingdom. In fact, in 2023, when then UK's Security Secretary travelled to India in the month of August, he announced £95,000 to tackle the issue of extremism in UK. And in fact, both countries, both India and UK, has joint mechanism to discuss and handle the issue of extremism. But despite that, Akanksha, despite that, when today Minister Jaishankar was in London, in fact he is on his official visit to London, at the time of him walking out of Chatham House, this person could be seen running towards his convoy, tearing apart Indian national flag, perhaps in the police presence. And as you rightly said, that the police was unresponsive and you know was hesitating to act against these groups. So only assurances have come from UK so far. When it comes to the ground reality, perhaps it does not match to the assurance anywhere.
Stay with me, Siddhant. Let me quickly go across to Sanjay. Sanjay, those visuals are speaking 1,000 words from themselves. You know, if you look at it, the action coming in from the police there is a little, it's too little and too late. But having said that, the MEA statement is also reminding UK of its diplomatic obligations, which is why I want to ask, what is it that you're learning in terms of such a demonstration being allowed to be staged outside Chatham House, where the External Affairs Minister was delivering a keynote address?
Well, it does not seem to me that the police action was too little too late. For a start, this was a planned demonstration. These were people, just a handful of these guys. They were positioned on the other side of the road behind a pen, and they were asked to stay there. They were waving their flags and shouting their slogans as they do, and we do need to keep reminding ourselves it's just a handful of these guys, and so they were kept there. At one point, one of these guys crossed the road and came in front of the minister's car, and there was a police presence there, and they caught hold of him and took him back to the other side of the road. So that action was effective enough, quite visibly. Also, we do need to consider that this kind of thing cannot be prevented entirely at all by any government, because if there's a group of people who wants to stage a demonstration, by law the police have to allow it. They did in this instance, and they were kept at a safe distance. When someone crossed, then action was taken. But clearly what we are seeing is that it's a very small group of people, just 3 or 4 people, 8, 10 people at the most, and their aim is to draw attention to themselves. And the minute someone does even something mildly disruptive, it begins to draw the kind of attention we are seeing and the kind of attention you and I are engaging in at the moment. And this is playing right into their hands. This is exactly what they want. There is no movement here to speak of. Nobody cares for these fellows. There's just a few people, and they would be of no consequence.
Welcome back. Amid the language debate, Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister has renewed his attack on the centre. Repeating the Hindi imposition charge, MK Stalin has claimed that DMK is fighting for Tamil's rightful place in Tamil Nadu. Shortly after, Karnataka's Deputy Chief Minister DK Shivakumar too jumped on the bandwagon, but Andhra Pradesh CM has backed its ally, the BJP, and has come down heavily on MK Stalin, claiming that there is no ground for Stalin's objections. With allies picking sides, it seems that the battle lines are drawn. And so in 2021, the then BJP government in Karnataka had implemented the national education policy, and while Congress mulls to replace it, there has not been any real action yet. The KCR government in Telangana has implemented the NEP in 2020. Now the NEP has remained constant in the states of Andhra Pradesh through the change of government from Jagan Mohan Reddy to Chandrababu Naidu. The left government in Kerala has developed a new curriculum in lieu of the national education policy, so it leaves only Tamil Nadu that has not only rejected the national education policy but also remains headstrong on its commitment to the two-language policy. This wouldn't be the first time Tamil Nadu government has targeted the centre. While the language debate is the latest in a series running through years, it leaves one wondering if the protest launched by opposition is even valid or just one of the many strategies. It was merely days ago when the Stalin government accused the centre of imposing Hindi in the state via the means of the national education policy. The ripples of the same continue to dominate political discourse even till date. And then it was the charge of cutting seats in the state through delimitation exercise. Even when the centre introduced NEET in 2024, the Tamil Nadu government called it an attempt to interfere in the state's education system, even passed a resolution against NEET in the assembly. The Stalin government has even accused the centre of exploiting its powers under Article 293 of the Constitution and severely limiting the borrowing capacity of the states. On the Kachativu Island route, Stalin again rejected the claim that there was an agreement between the union and the state government over the ceding of the island to neighbouring Sri Lanka. He further criticised the BJP government for not having taken steps to retrieve the island. This raging debate has of course also raised several questions today, even more so after BJP's Tamil Sai Soundarajan was detained today. With the fact that the BJP was denied to protest today, and several of its leaders were also detained, the DMK protests against Hindi imposition have been taking place across the state. Is Stalin also curbing freedom of speech and expression? Funds, NEP, delimitation. What will Stalin rake up next to target the centre? The centre has clarified on NEP, but Stalin refuses to let his guard down. Is it really about language pride anymore? Is language debate threatening the unity? The North versus South war will only bear repulsive consequences. And is centre really meting out the second-hand treatment to Tamil Nadu, as Stalin is now claiming? So as far as the language war is concerned, is there a crackdown on political rivals as Stalin government is losing the narrative war? That's the question we'll be posing to our guests in just a bit.
First, we want to protect our language. That is our intention and that is our commitment.
I am against the atrocity of the government.
Global opportunities you want to tap, then naturally multi-languages you have to grow.
Joining me on the guest today is Mr. C.R. Kesavan, who is the national spokesperson for the Bharatiya Janata Party, P. Gandhi, who is a spokesperson for DMK, Varun Kumar, who is a leader from the TDP, and Lakshmi Ramachandran, who is a spokesperson for the Congress Party. Many thanks to you, Lakshmi, and the gentleman for joining in. Mr. Kesavan, I want to ask you the question that first came up to my mind. Did you even try to get the permit? Because that's the reason which was being given for detaining Tamilisai Soundarajan today.
Akanksha ji, good evening to you, your fellow panelists and also the viewers. First thing, was Tamilisai ji engaged in a protest? Was she engaged in a procession? Was she engaged in a public meeting? Was she doing an illegal gathering? No. She was going, meeting people, getting signatures in support of the progressive and transformative NEP 2020 in the most peaceful manner. So, in the most undemocratic manner, this government has come down, while you could see, exactly opposite to her, the DMK cadres were protecting, nobody reined them in, they had a free run. And we strongly condemn the way in which the DMK government is behaving, and the DMK government is rattled. That is the fact of the matter, because everybody now seems to understand that this is a very desperate, divisive, diversionary drama and the DMK to cover up their colossal failures over the last 4 years. And this Dravida model of governance has been disastrous and dismal. Today we have Tamil Nadu as the highest debtor state, 8.3 lakh crore debt, highest state in the country. But as far as this language policy is concerned, let me reiterate it very clearly. The NEP is a 65-page document where Tamil, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam and Kannada are mentioned more times than Hindi.
Tamil is mentioned twice, Hindi only once. Mr. Gandhi, I want to bring you in. That brings us to the big burning question. Why weren't DMK student cadres detained that time? When they were protesting, did they seek their due permission? And is seeking signatures actually a violation of any norms in your state?
There is no detention of anything of that official sort. First of all, this is nothing but a public outcry, because this Tamilisai was doing something which is against the sentiments of the Tamil people. We are committed for the 2-language policy. We are rejecting the 3-language policy. That is very clear. It is not the position of the government of Tamil Nadu led by DMK. It is the position of the people of Tamil Nadu. That is there from 1950s. If you remember, in 1950s, when Hindi was imposed in the state, there were riots across the streets and a number of people were killed. So it is a sentiment. It is a sentiment of the people of Tamil Nadu. And you are going against the sentiment of the people of Tamil Nadu, then there will be a public objection in a peaceful manner. So there is nothing the government has detained Tamilisai or the government has done anything.
C.R. Kesavan, who decides what's the popular sentiment in Tamil Nadu? I'm sure you would disagree.
Popular sentiment will be decided if the people don't choose to sign. Already you have 130,000 signatures in a day. So why are you rattled and trying to detain her? If the people don't choose to sign, they won't sign. But let me also reiterate one thing. The 68 and 1986 National Policy of Education was done under Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. It made Hindi compulsory, and I also want to remind in 86 when Rajiv Gandhi introduced the policy, the DMK, 21 of them committed suicide through either poisoning themselves or immolating themselves. This was against Rajiv Gandhi's government. Here, the NEP 2020 pretty much says you can choose whatever language you want, and the hypocrisy of the DMK is coming out very clearly, because the number of private students in Tamil Nadu is higher than the government schools, which shows that the DMK model has failed. And when these people talk about 2-language policy, if they are so ideologically committed, why is there ideological dilution? Why do private school boards have 3rd language?
Mr. Gandhi, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to respond to that. Okay. Let Mr. Kesavan make his point. I'll come to you, Mr. Gandhi. Let Mr. Kesavan make his point.
I want to remind Mr. Kesavan.
Let me complete. I didn't complete my point, sir. Let me complete. And they talk about social justice. It's a mockery. When the private school children can study a 3rd language and can empower themselves with holistic education, why are the government children being denied this opportunity of studying a 3rd language? When 3rd language becomes a privilege or preserve of the privileged private students and the government students are suffering, where's social justice? It's a mockery.
Mr. Gandhi, I'd like you to come in now.
Yeah, first of all, I want to remind Mr. Kesavan one thing. NEP 1 and NEP 2 does not impose the way NEP 3 is doing it right now. As far as NEP 1 and NEP 2 are concerned, they suggested for three.
Where's the question of imposition? Everybody's been asking this question since day way. No. It's my job also to ask questions. So,
let's be very clear.
Mr. Gandhi, just 5 seconds. Since day one, we've been asking one very basic question. Where's the issue of imposition when there is a choice? There's an option.
When you say 3-language policy, and when we say 2-language policy, and when your minister says, if you are not agreeing to the 3-language policy, we will not release your own funds to you. That is what we call it as imposition.
No,
Hindi comes next. And when we are saying we are committed only to 2-language policy, it is our option whether to learn the 3rd language or not. Why are you not allowing to do that? Who are you to tell us to learn compulsory learn 3 languages?
Okay. Let's see our Kesavan answer that before I go to Lakshmi and Varun, who are very patiently waiting their turn.
The DMK in 2023 had written a letter accepting the centre's proposal for PM Shri, and they reneged and they, backed out of it.
Absolutely false.
Sir, I didn't interrupt you. If you have a substantial point, make it after I make it, please.
So Go ahead, Mr. Kesavan.
So they went back on their word. And more importantly, these people talk about Dravidianism, their ally. Congress follows a 3-language policy in the southern states of Telangana and Karnataka. I mean, that is bunkum bogus they are talking about. And one more thing, you talk about Dravidianism. Why are you preventing the government school children from learning Dravidian languages? Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam. And
Lakshmi, I'm sure you will agree that this is now becoming an ideological rift within the opposition alliance itself.
You got to understand what
let Lakshmi make a point, because Congress has, of course, we are now alluding to the years 1968 and of course 1986 as well.
There is no ideological rift. School education is in the concurrent list. The central government has come up with a policy.
The ideology that we are talking about is linguistic unity, Lakshmi. We are talking about the ideology of linguistic unity. That in itself is an ideology.
Let me finish. But since school education is in the concurrent list, it is very important that the concurrence of the state governments is also asked before a policy is promulgated. That was not done. It is 3-language policy is being imposed. Now tell me, the states that claim to follow 3-language policy all these years, tell me what is the 3rd language in, say, for example, Gujarat or Maharashtra or for UP or Bihar. What is the 3rd language in these states? And how proficient are the students in 3rd language, or for that matter, even the 2nd language? So, language teaching is not easy. Language teaching needs immersion, and it needs a lot more resources than teaching math or science. So, when you're teaching a 2nd language, which is not there in the environment of the child, that itself is a huge task. But show outcomes in that. In terms of educational outcomes, Tamil Nadu is far ahead of all other states. Why are we being penalized? Why are we not being given our own tax money for, why are you, spoiling
C.R. Kesavan, are we exploiting linguistic pride for political mileage?
I want to ask a straight question. When the founding fathers and mothers bequeathed the constitution, education was on the state list. Who moved it to the concurrent list? During the emergency, through the 42nd Amendment, the Congress government moved it from the state to the concurrent list, and the DMK was with them in power from 2004 to 14. Why did they make any effort to move it back to the state list? Why didn't the DMK make any effort? Political convenience. They talk about state rights being eroded, autonomy being eroded. Who moved it to the concurrent list? Why didn't you move it back?
Why coming up with a policy on a subject that is in the concurrent list?
There can be an answer. Why did they move it from the state to the concurrent list?
Now you tell me, why is it that you are not making the concurrent?
That shows political opportunism. As simple as that. And if you take, you have a TDP spokesperson, you ask them in Andhra government schools and Kerala government schools, Tamil is being taught. You please ask them.
Varun, I think it's time you finally step in as the veto voice over here, because I want to ask you, is this now becoming about political mileage, what's happening in Tamil Nadu?
Well, I think the odd number is out. We played it at a different level altogether. We see it at a different lens, Akanksha. So, like our Chief Minister yesterday rhetorically stated that the viewpoint is totally on a different stand that we don't see it. So keeping this linguistic chauvinism or multilinguistic things or sociological factors aside, looking at it at a progressive way out, progressive path. So we welcome NEP very openly, a 3-language policy, which is there in Andhra Pradesh for a very long time. And like Mr. Keswan mentioned, yes, we have schools that teach Tamil in our bordering districts like Nellore and Chittur, especially the places where I come from. And languages that did no harm to people. Learning more languages seems to be very much inevitable in global competence today. Looking at the line that world has become a global village, I think keeping this political and ideological rifts apart, one has to make sure that if you're making a policy within the state, if it has been in the concurrent list, like Mr. Lakshmi and Mr. Keswan stated, like let's not argue on who brought it to the state list or who is not going to send it back to the central list. But I would rather see that if people of one section of the society in particular state is entitled to learn few languages, so be it all with everyone. I mean, that makes sense also. And let's not deprivilege anybody from learning things new. And everybody has a right to learn, grow, outperform amongst the global competitors today. If you look at Andhra Pradesh is very welcoming and very receptive in terms of learning new languages. And also, our Chief Minister said that we are trying to promote foreign languages as much as we can. So we think we are a part of a global global competence altogether, and we need people from India to be competitive globally.
How do you respond to that, Mr. Gandhi? Because you're looking at a time when multilingualism is also become synonymous for cognitive development. You're looking at a time and era where global opportunities are also being associated with multilingualism.
First of all, one should understand what is the concept of language. What is the purpose of language? The purpose of language is just for communication, and it also plays as an identity in a multilinguistic society.
That's your understanding of it.
Yeah, that is the understanding. As far as communication is concerned, the natural way
why
of
are children opting for in private schools? Why are children opting for a third language such as Hindi or even any other language? Because they are being given that option. Why not let the student decide that?
Why should you burden your children with not redundant languages, which is of no use? That is our point. If at all, if you want to learn as a separate language, today in the modern world,
C.R. Keswan, I think it's time you step in.
Like
okay, we are looking at a time when Tamil Nadu is now calling Hindi a redundant language.
If the gentleman is finished, I'll come and I don't want to...
Yes.
We are concerned Hindi is a redundant language. It is of no use to...
So Mr. Gandhi maintains that Hindi is a redundant language.
Akanksha ji, see the strawman argument.
What is the utility?
Okay, you made your point, Mr. Gandhi. Let's listen from the other side.
See the strawman argument, see the false binary. Here, the NEP says any 2 regional languages. Very, very, very clearly. So you can learn any 2 languages, and these guys are trying to again twist the narrative. But you know the irony with the DMK, they talk about Hindi imposition. He should recall in 2004 when the UPA formed the government, when the DMK patriarch was asked, when his nephew was made the union minister, he was asked, why are you making him a union minister? He's the first time MP, very young, is a dynastic preference. He said, no, he knows Hindi.
Okay.
That is why he's sending him to the union cabinet. He's
okay. Varun wants to make a point. I want to take quick closing thoughts from Lakshmi. Varun, quick 15 seconds. And Okay, Lakshmi, if Hindi is a redundant language, and I think I understand that school of thought also, what about students who want to go abroad? Will they be using Hindi? The corporate culture also is perhaps now encouraging English over Hindi, and I understand that school of thought. But why didn't Rajiv Gandhi and Indira Gandhi think about it in 68 and 86?
See,
5 seconds.
When adults move to some other place, it could be France or it could be Africa, they learn the language of the wherever their job takes them or wherever their life takes them. That is something that you do in your adult life. As far as school education is concerned,
I think this is self-defeating and both regressive to, in fact, take the choice away from students. I'm sure all of us will agree, and let's agree to disagree. Many thanks to you all for joining in on Plain Speak. And with that, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching. Up next is The Right Stand with Anand Narasimhan.
MDH का किचन
Now, as India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar participated in a discussion held by Chatham House in London, Khalistani protesters have staged protests outside the venue. The protesters had gathered outside the building holding flags and speakers as they sloganeered. Dr. Jaishankar was leaving the Chatham House venue after a discussion, remember, as the man ran towards his car and even attempted to heckle Dr. S. Jaishankar. A video of this entire incident now circulating online shows the man aggressively rushing towards the External Affairs Minister's convoy, while officers initially appeared hesitant to act. However, moments later, the police moved in and took him and other extremists away. Meanwhile, Dr. Jaishankar has confirmed to raising this issue of extremism and trafficking in meeting with UK's Secretary of State for Home Affairs, Yvette Cooper. Now, MEA sources are telling CNN News 18, in fact, they have confirmed that MEA has also condemned this breach of security during External Affairs Minister's visit to the United Kingdom.
देखिए, बहुत सारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं अभी जिनमें अभी इस प्रकार का एक तत्व शामिल है जो भारत को खंडित करने की मानसिकता से लगा हुआ है। उसमें खालिस्तानी फोर्स भी है, वो जगह जगह पे अपनी कोशिश कर रहे हैं, लेकिन आप यकीन माने जिस स्पीड से भारत समावेशी एक जिसे कहेंगे हम ग्राउथ की तरफ जा रहा है, ऐसी ताकतें खुद ब खुद डिफीट होंगी।
एक कुल मिलाकर 100-150 लोग हैं पूरे लंदन में जो इस प्रकार की हरकत करते हैं और सिर्फ लोगों का ध्यान अपनी ओर आकर्षित करने के लिए करते हैं। ना जमीन वहां पर उनके पास है, ना यहाँ पर भारत में कोई उनका कोई समर्थक है।
All right, joining me right now on this news story is Siddhant Mishra from the newsroom, Sanjay Suri joining me from London. In fact, many thanks to you both for joining in. Siddhant, first of all, take us through the MEA statement, which has, of course, very much deplored this misuse of democratic freedom.
Well, that's right, Akanksha. And in fact, this is not happening for the first time. If you remember, in 2023, when Indian High Commission was attacked by Khalistani goons, at that point in time also, India did take up this issue, that issue very, very seriously with